Have you ever wondered why so many Hollywood movies make war look exciting, heroic, and even noble? Why do U.S. soldiers always seem like the good guys, fighting for freedom, while the enemies are just faceless villains? It might seem like just storytelling, just entertainment. But what if it's more than that? What if the movies we watch are quietly shaping the way we see war, and even making us more likely to support it? In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain. We'll explore how Hollywood, knowingly or not, helps promote U.S. wars. We'll look at the deals made behind the scenes, the messages built into blockbuster scripts, and why this matters more than ever. Stay with me until the end, because once you learn how deep this connection goes, you might never watch a war movie the same way again. Movies aren't just stories. They're emotional experiences. They make us laugh, cry, feel proud, feel scared. They take us into worlds we've never seen and make us believe things we've never questioned. That's the power of cinema. It speaks to our emotions more than facts ever could. And when it comes to war, that power becomes even more important. Think about the last war movie you saw. Chances are the U.S. soldiers were shown as brave, loyal, and selfless. They were fighting against a dangerous enemy. There was sacrifice. There was honor. There was usually a moment that made you feel proud, even if you didn't agree with war itself. Now ask yourself this. How often do those same movies show the full horror of war? The innocent lives lost? The destruction of entire cities? The soldiers who come home with trauma? Or the ones that don't come home at all? Not very often. That's because most war films, especially the big-budget ones, don't focus on the costs. They focus on the mission, the courage, the flag. Over time, this shapes how people think. If all you see is the heroic version of war, it's easier to support it. It feels justified, necessary, even noble. This doesn't happen by accident. It happens because movies are one of the most powerful tools for influencing how we see the world, and war is no exception. Before we dive into how the U.S. military works directly with Hollywood to shape this image, it's important to understand this first truth. Stories change minds. They make complex events feel simple. They turn messy wars into clear battles between good and evil. And they do it in a way that feels natural, even patriotic. So the next time a movie makes you cheer for a war hero or feel good about a mission, remember, that feeling isn't random. It was carefully written, performed, edited, and delivered to you for a reason. In the next section, we'll explore who's really behind those messages and what they're asking in return. Here's something most people don't know. The U.S. military works directly with Hollywood. Not secretly, not behind closed doors, openly. For decades, the Pentagon has partnered with movie studios to help create war films, action thrillers, and even some superhero stories. In exchange, they offer something no director can resist: access. That means real tanks, real helicopters, real Navy ships, military bases, uniforms, weapons, and trained soldiers as extras. All of this saves studios millions of dollars and makes the film feel authentic. It's a dream come true for any filmmaker. But there's a catch. The military doesn't just hand over its toys for free. It reviews the script. And if something paints the U.S. Armed Forces in a bad light, the deal is off. So what happens? Writers often rewrite scenes to get military approval. They remove anything that looks too critical. They cut out real-life war crimes. They tone down civilian deaths. They replace complex truths with simple good versus evil stories. In some cases, entire characters or subplots are changed just to make the military look more heroic, more ethical, and more professional. This partnership has existed for a long time. It's not a conspiracy, it's a system, a formal process. There's even a dedicated office in the Pentagon that handles Hollywood requests. If you want military gear in your movie, you send in the script. They read it. If they like it, they help you. If they don't, you're on your own. And guess what? Most big studios choose to cooperate. Why wouldn't they? The deal is too good to turn down. They get realism, reduced costs, and government support. All they have to do is play by the rules. But here's the problem. When the government helps shape the story, it's not just entertainment anymore. It's influence. And when those stories keep repeating the same message, that U.S. wars are always just and brave, it becomes more than a movie. It becomes a powerful tool of persuasion. In the next part, we'll take a closer look at the films that came out of this partnership and what they're really saying. Now that you know Hollywood and the military often work together, let's look at the result, the movies. Over the years, some of the biggest box office hits have been military approved. Think about titles like Top Gun, American Sniper, Black Hawk Down, and Transformers. These movies weren't just popular, they were blockbusters. And they all had one thing in common. They showed the U.S. military is strong, brave, and always on the right side. Take Top Gun, for example. When it was released in the 1980s, U.S. Navy recruitment reportedly spiked. Why? Because the film didn't just entertain, it made being a fighter pilot look cool, heroic, and full of purpose. The Navy even set up recruitment booths outside theaters. In American Sniper, the story focuses on a soldier's courage and sacrifice. But it avoids deeper questions, like why the war happened or what damage it caused to civilians. You don't see much of the chaos or moral confusion. Just a skilled soldier doing his job. That's the pattern. These films usually show American soldiers as noble and the enemy as faceless, violent, or evil. There's rarely any gray area. Just clear lines between good and bad, right and wrong. But real war isn't like that. War is messy. It's painful. It involves innocent people getting hurt, soldiers suffering from trauma, governments making decisions with hidden motives. But most Hollywood war films leave that out, especially the ones that work with the Pentagon. And when the hard questions are left out, the audience gets a one-sided view. A clean, action-packed version of war that feels more like a video game than a real human tragedy. These stories don't just entertain. They shape beliefs. If you see enough of them, it's easy to think, well, maybe war is necessary, or maybe the U.S. really is always the hero. That's the quiet power of storytelling. In the next section, we'll talk about why this matters, and what it means when movies sell us a version of war that leaves out the truth. So why does all of this matter? Because movies don't stay on the screen. They stay in our minds. They shape how we feel about the world, including war. When we constantly see war presented as clean, heroic, and necessary, it affects how we think. It becomes easier to support military actions. We stop asking tough questions. We stop seeing the human cost. And that's exactly the danger. If a film shows a war is justified, then viewers are more likely to believe that real wars are too. If the enemy in a movie is always dangerous and evil, then it becomes easier to believe the same about real people in other countries, even if we've never met them. This makes war feel normal, acceptable, even exciting. And for governments, that's useful, because it's hard to gain public support for war. People don't like seeing soldiers die. They don't like seeing innocent lives destroyed. But if the public already sees war as something heroic thanks to movies, then it's easier to get that support. It helps create what some people call the military entertainment complex, a quiet system where entertainment supports political goals. No one needs to lie. They just need to repeat a certain story enough times until people believe it. And it's not just about what's shown. It's also about what's left out. Most of these films don't show civilian deaths. They don't show the long-term destruction of war zones. They don't show PTSD in depth or how war affects families for years. Those parts are too messy, too real, so they get cut. In the end, viewers are left with a version of war that looks clean, fast, and full of glory, instead of fear, grief, and pain. And when that version of war becomes normal in entertainment, it slowly becomes normal in real life too. In the next section, we'll talk about the people pushing back, the critics, the filmmakers, and the stories that try to tell the truth and what happened to them. Not everyone in Hollywood goes along with the military's version of the story. Over the years, some filmmakers have tried to tell a different side of war, one that's more honest, more painful, and far less glamorous. These are the movies that show the trauma, the doubt, and the ugly consequences that come with real conflict. But here's the catch. Those films often face major obstacles. Without Pentagon support, directors don't get access to military equipment, locations, or personnel. That means they have to work with smaller budgets. They might not get wide distribution, and studios might hesitate to back a project that could spark controversy. Take the movie Platoon, for example. It won awards and told a raw, personal story of the Vietnam War. But it was made without military support. Same with Born on the 4th of July. These films showed the emotional scars left on soldiers, and they didn't paint everything in red, white, and blue. There's also The Hurt Locker, a tense, gritty war film that avoided easy answers. It showed stress, fear, and moral confusion. Again, no help from the Pentagon. And documentaries? They face even tougher roads. If they question the motives behind wars or highlight civilian deaths, they're often dismissed as unpatriotic or anti-American. In reality, they're just showing parts of the story that Hollywood usually skips. Some actors and writers have also spoken out. They've warned about the dangers of turning war into entertainment. But their voices are small compared to the billion-dollar studios pushing the same patriotic message. This doesn't mean good war films can't be made. It just means that when someone tries to tell the truth, they often do it alone. And while these critical voices exist, they don't get the spotlight. They don't play before millions of viewers on opening weekend. They don't have action figures or fast food tie-ins. They have something else, honesty. But honesty is harder to sell. In the final section, we'll wrap everything up and ask the question that matters most. What should we do with this knowledge? So now you know, Hollywood isn't just telling stories. It's shaping how we see war. Through thrilling action, emotional scenes, and patriotic soundtracks, it sells a version of war that feels clean, justified, and even exciting. But behind the scenes, there's a quiet deal, support from the U.S. military in exchange for control over the message. That's not fiction. That's real. And it changes the way stories are told. The result? Generations of people grow up watching films that make war seem necessary, even noble, while ignoring the pain, loss, and destruction that come with it. This doesn't mean every war movie is bad, and it doesn't mean filmmakers are evil, but it does mean we need to watch more carefully. Because once you see the pattern, it's hard to unsee it. Ask yourself, who benefits from this story? What's being left out? And who's deciding what's shown? The next time you watch a war film, remember, someone may have shaped that story to guide how you feel. And the goal might not be just entertainment. It might be approval, silence, or support. We don't have to stop watching these films, but we should stop watching them blindly. If this video made you think differently, even just a little, consider sharing it. Someone else might be seeing these movies the same way you used to. And if you want to learn more about how media, politics, and power work together, make sure to subscribe. We'll keep exploring the stories beneath the surface, the ones that aren't always told. Because once you start asking questions, you begin to see the truth. And that's where real understanding begins.